All right. Hello, principles of management class. This represents our first online lecture over chapter one. So we're going to get and jump right into it. We're going to see how much more efficient I am when I don't get off on tangents and have nobody to talk to in this very, very empty room that I'm doing this in. So we're going to go ahead and get started with chapter one, the exceptional manager, what you do and how you do it. So as you can see here, this is the picture of our textbook. Um, and obviously we're in the first chapter. So our learning objectives, as you can see there are 8 learning objectives. Identify the rewards of being an exceptional manager. List the 4 principal functions of a manager. Describe the levels and areas of management. Identify the roles an effective manager must play. Discuss the skills of an outstanding manager. Identify the 7 challenges faced by most managers. Define the core competencies, knowledge, soft skills, attitudes, and other characteristics needed for career readiness, and discuss how they can be developed. And then last but not least, describe the process for managing your career readiness. So when we talk about the group project that you individuals will be doing over the course of this semester, these learning objectives are the learning objectives you are tying it back to with your project. So in this case, with chapter one, since there are 8 learning objectives, you will have 24 questions on your chapter reviews. Okay, so this is a good starting point here, this second slide, to get in and understand just exactly what is expected of you when it comes to learning objectives. Okay, using management skills for college success. So we're going to talk about the 4 functions of management here in a little bit, but you'll see how when we get those introduced to us, how closely they do actually relate to not only college success, but success in your high school careers, along with, frankly, all aspects of life, whether it be activities that you're in or jobs that you are in currently. Those functions of management are pretty ubiquitous in terms of being a successful individual. Second point there, applying the functions of management to school projects. Case in point, the school project you guys are going to be working on weekly in our course. And the reason why our online lectures are just that, online. We want to give you guys as much time, much face-to-face time as possible within the day to complete your school projects and really manage yourself and actually get that face-to-face interaction, really learn by doing. And then, of course, number 3 there, we already kind of touched on it in the first point there, applying functions of management in your personal life. So those 3 skills there, if you can apply, can really lead to success, not only in your professional career, but also your personal career as well. Okay. Next slide there. Management, what it is, what its benefits are. So the rise of a leader. So management and leadership are synonymous with one another. It's really difficult to manage individuals without being a leader, and we'll find through this chapter, and really through the course in general, that not all leadership styles are the same. And I think you all understand that, right? Some teachers, and let's just use teachers as an example, right? Teachers, frankly, they are managers in a sense, right? In that they manage students, right? If you can imagine yourselves students as employees, teachers are in the art of management. And through your experiences, teachers demonstrate different leadership styles, right? You probably have all been a part of classes that were, rather strict. It was by the book. It was, you knew exactly what you were doing every minute of that class. But then you probably have also had leaders where it's a little bit more free flowing, where it was a little bit more what I like to call laissez-faire, hands off, where the teacher kind of let you explore a little bit. You probably had teachers that frankly weren't very good leaders at all, and that class may have looked a certain way. So you guys probably understand better than most leadership in its many different forms, right? And the rise of a leader really is a big benefit of management, right? It almost kind of pushes you into kind of taking charge and being a leader. Second point there, key to career growth. So doing things I've never done before. You'll find that once you kind of get pushed into management or become in charge of people, you're going to experience and do things that frankly, have never done before. Sort of the art of getting people your age or potentially even older than you to do projects and do objectives that I won't say they don't necessarily want to do, but you motivating them to get them done in an efficient, timely fashion that helps serve the company. That's a huge career growth point, and it's frankly something that you're not you're not super used to until you actually do it. We'll take a look at the art of management defined as well. Why organizations value managers. We'll talk about the multiplier effect, and then we'll talk about the rewards and practices of studying management, or the rewards of studying and practicing management. Okay. The rise of a leader. So I encourage you to take a look at General Motors CEO Mary Barra. She has a really interesting story with her rise to power at GM. So I just encourage you to maybe do a little bit of background reading there on Mary Barra. We talked about keys to career growth, right? Doing things you've never done before. So Jeff Bezos is an example of this. Bezos, obviously the former CEO of Amazon, is still on as an advisor. However, he founded Amazon. He actually left a job as a Wall Street investment banker, which is, for those of you who don't know, is a very lucrative career. And by lucrative, we mean making a lot of money. He left that job. He set sail, gone somewhere he had never gone before, and he started Amazon from his basement, right? And for those of you who do not remember, Amazon started out as a book company, right? So imagine him leaving Wall Street as a banker to go ahead and start a book company called Amazon from his basement. And of course, now we understand that, how Amazon has grown since then. But anyway, Bezos, an example of career growth, right? Leaving a career that would have made him, a fair deal of money, to then starting a company himself that was a little bit maybe out of his comfort zone, and then for a period of time, then becoming the richest individual on the planet. So, an extreme example, yes, but an example nevertheless. All right, we talked about the art of management being defined. So, being an exceptional manager is an art that can be learned. All right, and what we mean by this is that managers are not just simply born. Right, these are skills that you can learn and teach yourself, and actually practice to get better at. Right now, for some people, it comes more naturally, absolutely, but it doesn't mean that you yourself cannot be a manager. Okay, these are skills that can be learned. Management is the art of getting things done through people. All right. So you'll find when we work through this project, especially our team leaders, they are going to kind of develop this art of getting done a successful project through the individuals on their team, because this project, these weekly projects we do are not, how do we put this? They are not a job that can probably be done by one individual in the time frame. So we have to be able to work through other people, divide and conquer, motivate individuals then to get those jobs done. Okay. Managers are task-oriented individuals, achievement-oriented, and people-oriented. And really, one idea or one thing that gets missed here and all of that is the people-oriented piece on that, right? Managers, especially in today's climate, really have to be individuals who can work with people. This is, not a different era where the manager could just tell you, hey, this is what you're going to do. It needs to be done in this deadline. Here you go. And then from that point on, being people who would then, really be what we call micromanaging on top of people then to get those tasks and achievements completed. Today, the climate has definitely shifted where managers almost have to be more of a teammate than a boss or a coach, where it's a lot of working together now to keep your people happy. And it's just a different era where managers have to be more mindful of the fact that they have to be people oriented individuals as well. And then our last key point there, good managers are concerned with trying to achieve both efficiency and effectiveness. All right. So with our jobs, okay, ultimately, yes, we have a task that we need to complete, a job that needs to get done, right? Let's say our job, we're managing the movement of bananas from Guatemala to Fairway here in Perry, right? So with that, we can be the effective part. The task is pretty simple: get bananas from Guatemala to Perry. Okay, that's the task. However, if we know anything about bananas, is that bananas eventually do go bad, right? So we have to be efficient with our process in terms of getting those bananas from point A to point B. We can be effective, right? We can get the bananas there, get it there, get it done. We can complete the task. However, if the bananas are black by the time you get there, that was not a very efficient process, right? The job was technically completed. However, it was not very efficiently done, right? So we have to balance both efficiency and effectiveness. And sometimes we find that it costs to be efficient in society. So we have to figure out what is an efficient way that is also effective, that can also help us maximize profits. So as you can kind of see here, just based off those 4 bullet points, there's quite a heck of a lot that goes into the art of management. There are a lot of hats that managers juggle. Okay. Why organizations value managers? The multiplier effect. So good managers, they create value. They create value within their organization. All right. And as you can see there to the right, as a manager, you have a multiplier effect. Your influence on the organization is multiplied far beyond the results that can be achieved by just one person acting alone. All right. And I want you to think about this as as just an example with achieving, with working through people. So if you're in charge of 10 different individuals, okay, and we call that a span of control. Your span of control is 10 different individuals, and you're a jerk to those people, right? You're constantly on them. Your demands are excessive. You're working these people to the bone, right? That right there is not creating good value for your company, right? Because then you have 10 workers who are not satisfied with their job, really don't want to go above and beyond to help the company. They really are just there potentially to just work 9 to 5 and call it a day, right? They're doing the bare minimum, right? And it's directly affected by the fact that you, as the manager, treat them poorly and have unrealistic demands of them. Okay. So right there, you are kind of creating, in fact, a negative multiplier effect where you are actually devaluing your company by really de-incentivizing these 10 individuals to not work as hard, right? However, if you can go back to the art of management and being able to do these 4 bullet points and do it well, you can actually strive, and especially with being the people oriented manager, you can actually get more value out of these employees, right? All of a sudden they want to work for you, they want to work with you, they want to go above and beyond for the company. So how you directly act as a manager can affect and really be a multiplier effect for the people within your organization. Okay. Now, we're not saying this is like being Michael Scott in The Office, okay, and just kind of letting them do whatever, right? But there is a fine balance that you have to strike from being an authoritarian manager where you just give orders to being able to work with people, understand their needs and their well-being as well. So you really have a great opportunity to prove yourself as a valuable manager, but really influence your company as being a multiplier. Okay, what are the rewards of studying management? So the rewards of studying management include Insiders' understanding of how to deal with organizations from the outside. You will know from experience how to relate to your supervisors. You will better interact with coworkers. You'll be able to manage yourself and your career, and you might make more money during your career. So, you know, one key thing there is that second bullet point, and studying managers, and then really understanding one day why your manager might be doing something that a lot of people may seem incorrect or really a bad decision. So you studying management can help you better understand what your supervisors, what your superiors are doing. Just that level of understanding with somebody higher above you can really go a long way in keeping yourself satisfied and then keeping a good relationship with your managers. Better interacting with your coworkers, so that ability to again kind of understand where your coworkers might be coming from, having a deeper understanding of their needs, and again kind of being that people oriented manager that is kind of taken hold in today's generation and today's climate, can really be effective there. And then that last bullet point I really want to touch on. You might make more money during your career. Well, this is absolutely correct in that managers typically make more than non-managers, right? So if you can study management and be able to work your way into those roles by understanding what managers do, it can really benefit you in the financial pocketbook as well. The rewards of practicing management. So, what are the rewards of practicing management? You and your employees can experience a sense of accomplishment. Okay, so you'll find with these projects when you go through, hopefully you'll be finding that sense of accomplishment in the terms of we've gone through the chapter, we've reviewed it, and now hopefully we're ready for the quiz or we're ready for the first midterm, right? So just that sense of getting a job done, and not to mention hopefully you getting a good grade on the weekly projects. You can stretch your abilities and magnify your range. Again, when we talk about magnifying your range, we talk about being able to do multiple jobs within an organization. One of the things that you as an individual, how you can create value for yourself is being able to do a lot of things within an organization. It's much harder to fire you or get rid of you if you are a highly skilled individual that can do quite a few jobs. So that ability to magnify your range can be really, really valuable in terms of practicing management. And then you can build a catalog of successful products or services. So with that, we call that a portfolio. And building that portfolio is basically it's a little bit of a brag book, but it's at the same time, if you ever decide to move on from a company, you can say, hey, this is some of the stuff that we've done or I've been a part of as a company, and that can really set yourself apart when it comes to getting a different job. Okay, 4 functions of management. So what do they do? We take a look at planning, organizing, leading, and controlling. Okay, so these 4 principal functions, bold them, underline them, star them, whatever it is that you think they are important, however you make that. These 4 functions, planning, organizing, leading, and controlling, very, very vital to what managers do, right? Now, this is a principles of management course. However, if you continue to go on throughout your career, you may actually be ended up exposed to 7 principal functions of management, just depending on how far or how deep you go into the management world. So taking a look here at the management process. So planning, as you can see, that's where a lot of this starts. So you set goals and decide how to achieve them. Okay, so from the outset, there's the planning phase. Okay, all good managers go into a project with a plan in mind, a plan of action. Organizing, you arrange tasks, people, and other resources to accomplish the work. Okay, so when we talk about arranging the tasks, we are talking about whatever the project is that needs to get done, arranging how to most efficiently and cost effectively get it done. Okay, manage our people, so putting the best people in the scenarios, in the situation to get that job done. and then what ever resources you need to accomplish the work. So if you have to bring in somebody from the outside to get that done, okay, understanding and ensuring that that is happening. Okay. Leading, motivating, direct, and otherwise influence people to work hard to achieve organization's goals. And then controlling, monitoring performance, compare it with goals, and taking corrective action as needed. Okay. And then, as you can see there, the flow chart then arrows back up there to planning. Okay. So, if controlling, if you notice all of a sudden that um, maybe the plan is not what we need, maybe it needs slightly adjusted, okay, then we can go right back into that revising of the planning stage, and then we can start the whole process over, right? So it's a very much a flow chart in how our four functions of management work. Okay. Pyramid power, so the levels and areas of management. So traditional management pyramid, levels and areas. So we have the four levels of management. So areas of management, functions, functional managers versus general managers. Managers for three types of organizations: for profit, nonprofit, and mutual benefit. And then different organizations and different management. So this is just the levels and areas of management that we have. And here it is as an example of the traditional management period. So we have at the bottom there non-manager employees. Okay, so these people are obviously individuals who are not they're not management. They end up taking orders. They have a job to do, and then with that, I mean, their job is they are really not in charge of anybody. From that point on, we move up to team leaders. So a lot of times organizations will group their workers into teams. So team leaders become a key point there. And not all organizations are going to necessarily have team leaders. It just kind of depends on what the organization might be. So you see a lot of team leaders in tech companies, where tech companies, they may have different projects that are being worked on. So you may have team leads that are kind of leading the process of whatever that project might be. Then you have first line managers. Okay, so first line managers are typically highly visible within the company. So I want you to think about, just as an example of this, it might be Hy-Vee, right? So with first line managers. So these first line managers, these are the managers of the meat department. These are the managers of the produce department. These are the center store managers, the frozen managers, the dairy managers, right? These guys and girls are managers. They might have employees under them, such as team leaders or non-managing employees. So they might have people under them. They're probably responsible for ordering those resources, whatever it might be, for whatever department they are in charge. But they are just in charge of their department. They are the kind of the first line. Okay. Then the next part might be the middle managers. And at Hy-Vee, using the Hy-Vee example, a middle manager would be like the store director. All right. So the store director is just that. They are the middle manager. They work with the top managers. So this could be the corporate office at Hy-Vee. So they are responsible for working with them. Okay. But then, as middle managers, they are also responsible for managing those frontline workers or first line managers, right? The produce department, the meat department, et cetera, right? So these middle managers kind of have a push and pull where they're pushing first line managers to perform well in their job, but then they also feel the pressure from top management to have their stores perform well overall. So middle managers, again, kind of in that sweet spot. And then you've got top managers, and top managers are just that. Top managers are the corporate executives. They are the individuals who are kind of leading the direction of the business in terms of different products and then different outlooks for the company. Okay, four levels of management, and as you guys can kind of see there, this is just another way they are defined. Areas of management, so functional managers versus general managers. So functional managers are responsible for just one organizational activity. Okay, so for instance, going back to our Hy-Vee example, a functional manager might be the produce manager, right? They are responsible for just that one activity. And then general managers, they are responsible for several organizational activities. Okay, and a general manager could be characterized again as a store director, where they're responsible for overseeing the entire store and all of the departments within it. Okay, managers, three types of organizations. So we have for-profit organizations, nonprofit organizations, and mutual benefit organizations, which we're going to deep dive a little bit in there. We won't spend too much time on it, but I encourage you to kind of read what managers from those different organizations do. So different organizations, different management. So kind of expanding on this a little bit. Generally, you would be performing the four management functions regardless of the type of organization. Okay. Um, Really, what the biggest difference is the measure of how we measure success. That's really the single biggest difference in between our for-profit, our nonprofit, and our mutual benefit organizations. Roles managers must play successfully. So, managers' roles. How do managers spend their time? Um, Three types of managerial roles: interpersonal, informational, and decisional. And we're going to expand um, on how those managers spend their time. So, managers are always working and they are in constant demand. Managers spend virtually all of their work time communicating with others. Managers must be purposeful and proactive about managing their time. So, when we look at this and we think about this, okay, we can go back a little bit to our, where was it here? Functional managers versus general managers. And we can actually put this in teaching terms too. So a functional manager might be a teacher. Let's use me as an example, right? So I'm a functional manager in that I am in charge of the business classes, right? So I'm a individual who is in charge of the business classes, where a general manager might be the principal, right? General manager might be the principal, might be Mr. Marburger, right, as the principal. So, us as managers, we spend our time differently. Okay, so if you think about, Mr. Marburger, for instance, who is a general manager, okay, he works more in the summer. His contracts are longer than my contracts because he is in charge of more within the organization, more within Perry High School. So he is in constant demand in terms of the direction of the school, different initiatives the school is doing, so on and so forth. Okay. He does an incredible amount of communicating. Okay. But I too, as a manager, also do an incredible amount of communicating, right? It's just his process is a little bit more longer. He's communicating with more people, right? He might be communicating with individuals in the math department and the social studies department, where I may just be communicating with students within my class. Okay. So even though our roles are different as managers, we're still using our time and communicating with each other or with individuals. So interpersonal roles. Interpersonal roles, we have what's called a figurehead, a leader, and a liaison. So a figurehead is kind of just that, as a person who's kind of a manager in title, in title only, where they might be the leader of an individual, but maybe they don't do a ton in the way of managing individuals. Then we have the leader, whereas they're more the traditional leadership, guiding, working with individuals to get something done. And then we have the liaison, and a liaison, really what they are is they are communication specialists. They are go-betweens between perhaps other managers, managers and other businesses, but their goal really is, with liaisons, is really being able to kind of communicate. And then we have informational roles. So monitoring, a big part of management is monitoring. Okay, monitoring what the health of the business, what is going on. Managing, monitoring the morale of employees, things of that nature. Okay. Then we have a disseminator. Okay. And when we mean dissemination, we're talking about getting a piece of information and then kind of figuring out what it all means. Okay. So as a disseminator of information, it could be on a few levels. It could be economical in terms of how the economy is performing. It could be disseminating the performance of your own business, disseminating the performance of rivals, and kind of examining and talking about what the heck does that all mean. And then as an informational, or you are also a spokesperson for the business, right? You are a positive spokesperson for the business, kind of explaining and reaching out and kind of showing what the business is about. Then we have decisional roles. Okay, so entrepreneur, disturbance handler, resource allocator, and negotiator, right? So you're an entrepreneur in that you're always trying to make gains with the company, expand into new and innovative ideas. You're a disturbance handler, maybe not negotiating, but handling disagreements between employees and workers, employees between each other, disagreements between employees and customers, so on and so forth. Resource allocator. So we know that resources are not infinite. So we have to figure out how are we going to invest within our own departments and companies. And then last but not least, negotiator, right? In terms of negotiating trade deals, prices, salary for your employees, so on and so forth. So as you guys can kind of see, managers wear a lot of hats and they have a lot of different roles, and a lot of their time is taken up within these different roles. Okay. Other skills needed as well. So technical skills, so the ability to perform a specific job. So not just talking about it, being about it, actually the ability to kind of step in there and perform a task if need be. Conceptual skills, the ability to think analytically. So getting pieces of financial information and then being able then to critically think about how this impacts the business and how business decisions are then made based off of that financial information. So you have to think analytically. And then last but not least, and we've touched on it quite a bit in this chapter, is that human skills, those soft skills, being able then to interact with people. Okay. So here's a piece on technical skills. So having the requisite technical skills seems to be the most important at lower levels of management among employees in their first professional job and first line managers. Okay. So requisite technical skills. So if you're a meat manager, that means being able to cut a proper, whether it's cutting a steak, right? So you have to be able to properly cut a steak. You have to be able to, properly clean the meat case, properly identify meat that's gone bad, right? So you have to really have the knowledge and the know-how to ensure that the customers are getting what they ask for, what they need, and then not only that, but make sure then they will not be made sick by your case and what dangers uncooked meat could potentially have. So you really have to have that knowledge and know-how on the lowest level. Conceptual skills, they move up the management ladder. So top managers. So with conceptual skills, they are in charge of the big picture, right? They are in charge of the decisions that will have far-reaching consequences for the health of the company as it moves forward, right? So the ability then to be able to disseminate and look at financial information and then say, hey, this is what, maybe we can expand our company now, or maybe we can find weaker competition that we can go take over in another part of the state or another state in general, right? So these conceptual skills, these ambiguous problems that are faced are more the role of top management. And then we've got human skills, and this is the most difficult set of skills to master, but are really important with people in teams and an important part of today's organization, right? So that ability to, and you guys really do have to think about it. It is a tough job where on the business side, you have a task and a job that needs to get done. Okay. No ifs, ands, or buts about it, right? The job has to get done, and you have people there that you're working through to get it done. However, you have to really be able to, one, work with those people to ensure the task gets done, but also take into account that those individuals on your team also have different needs and are at different places in their life. And you have to be willing to work with that within the framework of getting stuff done effectively and efficiently. And this can become a really, really tough balancing act for managers, and it can be difficult. And really managers can have some tough decisions to make in terms of the people that they bring on with them to these teams. But it's really a difficult and challenging aspect of the job is the human part. Most valuable traits in a manager. So chief skills companies seek on top of the manager. So here's what we got: ability to motivate and engage others. Okay, so that ability to motivate, get people to follow you and do their job. The ability to communicate, work experience outside of the United States. So as the world becomes more global, as transactions cross borders and across oceans become more prevalent, more accepted, more common, that work experience outside of the U.S. becomes really key. And the biggest reason because of that is just because of the cultural differences between nations, right? So one thing that really struck me when I visited Italy in the summer of 2022 was how long their lunches were, where we might sit down for a lunch at noon, get our food served to us at a relatively decent time. Let's say after all of the orders were taken and all the drinks were passed out, let's say 12:30. But it wasn't uncommon for us, and really not for us but for the servers, to not bring us our check until 2 or 2:30, because over there the culture kind of states that, or the way things are culturally done is that lunches go long, where oftentimes you're sitting there conversing long after the meal has been completed, where here in the United States the culture is very much time is money. And we get an hour lunch, right? We got it, our lunch starts at noon, and you got to be back working by 1, right? Not exactly how it works in Italy. So that work experience outside of the US can be very valuable to dealing with the different customs and cultures of different nations. And then high energy levels to meet demands of the global travel and a 24/7 world. So again, with globalization, the sun never sets, right? And what we mean by that is the sun is always rising somewhere in the world. And if the sun is rising, that means there is money to be made. So managers who have high energy and can meet those demands typically are handsomely compensated for doing so. All right. 7 different challenges. To be an exceptional manager is challenging one. Managing for competitive advantage, staying ahead of rivals. Managing for technological advances, so dealing with the new normal. Managing for inclusion and diversity. The future will not resemble the past. Managing for globalization, the expanding management universe. Managing ethics, ethical standards. Managing for a sustainable development, the business of green, so becoming more economically friendly. And then managing for happiness and meaningfulness. Okay. So challenge 1, organizations must stay ahead in 4 areas: being responsive to customers, which goes without saying, being able to communicate with customers, dealing with any issues they may have; innovation, coming up with new and exciting and more efficient products for customers to deal with; quality, developing high quality products for individuals to own and have, is key. And then last but not least, within all that, being efficient, right? And using your time as well as you possibly can. So staying ahead of the competition in all 4 of these is an incredible challenge. And I mean, let's be honest, it's why it's challenge number 1, is maintaining a competitive advantage through these 4 areas. Okay. Dealing with new normal. So e-commerce. Okay. So I don't think we need to go too deep into understanding what e-commerce is. Far-ranging electronic management all the time. So in terms of handling customer data, right, using then that customer data to market to them as individuals. Okay, new normal. Data, and more data, and a challenge to decision making. So determining what data is important. Okay, what data is the most pertinent, and then using that data to then make decisions. Because right now, what a lot of businesses are seeing is what we call data overload. There is so much information out there that this data overload can actually hurt companies, hurt businesses, and sometimes lead them to not making the correct decisions. Organizational changes, or excuse me, first, the rise of artificial intelligence, so more automation in the workplace, is dealing with a new normal. Organizational chart, so shift in structures, jobs, goals, and management. Okay, so how an organization, what the organizational hierarchy looks like, is constantly shifting. Organizations are becoming more flatter, which means the pyramid is not as high, right? There's not as many levels of communication between a mid or a frontline manager and the CEO of the company, right? So that is a shifting organizational chart that is happening in business right now, all in the name of efficiency. And then knowledge management and collaborative computing. So that goes back to the data piece, right? So all of the information, how do we manage it efficiently and make our decisions more efficient? And then collaborative computing, especially with work from home, how can we collaborate from different areas to ensure that we are being the most effective that we can be? Challenge number 3, managing diversity. So in the coming years, demographics are changing. More women, immigrants, older individuals are going to be in the workplace, right? It's going to be a very, not interesting mix, but it's going to be a different mix of different generations in the same workforce, more women participation, more immigrant participation in the workforce, right? So managing all of those different backgrounds. Some scholars think that diversity and variety in staffing produce organizational strength, which again, it can be looked at two ways, right? So, one, that organizational diversity can result in people coming from different backgrounds. So, those different backgrounds then promote different ideas within the company, provides more thought provoking activities. That can then push the business harder and then push the business in the correct direction, or not correct direction, but in a more efficient and effective direction by listening to those outside voices, those differing perspectives. So that's one way to think of it. And that's why a lot of those scholars believe it to be an organizational strength. However, and it does need to say that there is a challenge to the manager to maximize the contributions of employees in the diversity of gender, age, race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, right? Where there are a lot, while diversity can lead to, again, one point being a lot of perspectives, a drawback is that if and it's kind of tough to put it, but the drawbacks, if there's so many different perspectives, it can kind of be hard to arrive at a consensus within the organization, and that can kind of hurt efficiency. It may not lead to always the best decisions being made, right? So it's kind of a fine balancing act where you want to hear, voices in the room, right? You want to, ultimately make the best decision and hear different perspectives, but it can also, sometimes lead to inefficiencies. Challenge 4, the expanding management universe. So verbal gestures, expressions don't mean the same thing to everyone around the world. Okay. Putting the middle finger up here in the United States does not necessarily mean the same thing as it does in China. Okay. So that's kind of what we're getting at, right? So different cultural differences, those sorts of things matter. So failure to understand those differences can affect your ability to work in those companies, in those markets. So globalization, again, it's becoming increasingly interconnected, and it's a complex, ongoing challenge to be able to manage businesses across the world. Ethical standards. So really, you're seeing now serious consequences for individuals that are not realizing ethical standards that are followed in everyday life. So, ethical lapses have potential to do great harm, and not only financial harm, but really, we're going to focus on the financial harm for a moment. Two individuals I want you to look up with, if you're, as you're listening to this lecture, Bernie Madoff and Sam Bankman-Fried. Okay, these are two individuals that within their, one a hedge fund and the other their company, really did not adhere to the managing of ethical standards, and it has caused a lot of heartache and heartbreak for many individuals in the investment world. So I encourage you to take a look at those two individuals. Challenge 6, so the business of green, so managing for sustainability. So with the prosperity our economic systems have brought, we have done so by consuming a lot of natural resources. And while one argument of the spectrum is natural resources are to be consumed, one other argument of the spectrum is these natural resources are not unlimited. So again, we have to be able to pivot and shift as the supply of natural resources are lowered or become too expensive for us to use. We have to then be able to pivot to more sustainable means of development, more sustainable means of transportation to get our products from point A to point B. So you have issues out there that come with the business of sustainability. And one thing too that you're seeing as of right now is you're talking about more becoming more eco-friendly, carbon neutral, electric vehicles, so on and so forth, kind of that becoming green. One of the things that you're seeing is right now, at least, is it's expensive to do that, right? It's expensive to make those shifts and make those adjustments, right? And in a society and culture where it's about, especially in the US, it's about making the most profit, businesses sometimes still like to rely on the cheaper natural resources because they're still available at a cheaper rate than making that pivot to going green. So it's kind of, again, a balancing act that has to be done and undertaken as a manager, and again, why it pops up here as a major challenge. Challenge 7, managing for happiness and meaningfulness. So research shows that a sense of meaningfulness in your life is associated with better health, work and life satisfaction, and performance, right? So it goes to show happier people do better work. Okay. And I think you guys can probably understand that from a conceptual level. Okay. You probably are not exactly the most efficient and effective people when you're feeling down and feeling gloomy about something. Okay. I know that to be true for me. Right. So, and managers need to understand that. They need to, understand that treating employees well, in the long run will help, right? Will help and will ultimately lead them to better results. Okay, so even if that means having an employee take a mental health day, or take an extra long lunch to run a few errands, those sorts of things can pay dividends in the long run for manager. But again, it's all about being able to manage that. One, making sure that we can still get our tasks done, making sure that employees don't abuse that, but also, again, making sure, understanding that employees have needs to take care of as well. Building your career readiness. So, proportion saying that recent college grads are proficient in each competency. So this is just, as you can see there, different examples of surveys, so like global intercultural fluency, and then the proportion. So the dark blue is students saying they are ready for that, they're proficient in that, and versus employers. So as you can see, there's a little bit of disparity with some of those examples. So the last two I like: oral and written communications. Students, 80% of them believe that they are proficient, where only 42% believe that of employers believe that, and then 90% professionalism versus 43%. So you're kind of starting to see that generational gap there, where the employers themselves believe that they themselves, do not necessarily see eye to eye with their younger college ready counterpart, or their college graduate counterparts. Figure 4.1, model of career readiness. So knowledge, soft skills, attitudes, other characteristics. Really, I think, and then the core there. Really, I think that a lot of, and just from what I've heard in industry, the other characteristics, core and soft skills, are where a lot of our generation is struggling in the eyes of employers, where the soft skills, social intelligence, networking, emotional intelligence, viewed as, especially these last couple generations, kind of starting with millennial struggle, but then the other characteristics, resiliency, adaptability, self-awareness, services of others, openness to change, generalized self-efficacy, those sorts of things, it kind of show, again, that generational divide, that generational gap, that, maybe necessarily are not, we're not seeing eye to eye with our baby boomer and Gen Y counterparts. So it's, again, just kind of interesting to see, or Gen X counterparts, excuse me. So it's kind of interesting to see how the different generations think of each other. Developing career readiness. So build self-awareness. Okay. Learn from educational activities. Model others possessing the targeted competencies. Learn from on-the-job activities. Seek experiences from student groups and organizations. And then last but not least, experiment. Okay. Experiment. Don't be afraid to get out of your comfort zone. Again, figure out what works, and then, leave what doesn't. Managing career readiness. So 3 keys to success. It's your responsibility to manage your career. Don't count on others. Reflection, motivation, commitment, and experimentation are essential. And then success is achieved by following a process. So, these 3 keys to success, star them, bold them, underline them. Okay. Really important factors to consider. Steps for developing career readiness. So step 1, examine a list of career readiness competencies. Pick 2 or 3 that impact your current performance. Step 2, consider how to use material from the text to develop your targeted career readiness competencies. Step 3 is experiment. Step 4, evaluate what happened during your experiments. And then we have figure 1.5 here, a process for developing career readiness. And you guys can kind of see there, again, what it's kind of asking with you in terms of developing career readiness. Simple way to approach the task of managing your career readiness, make it a habit. So identify something specific you want to accomplish, and then identify a simple, tiny change that you can implement. Okay, so again, start small. Okay, can really kind of help you build those career readiness skills and tools here as you guys kind of work through your high school career and into your post-high school careers. All right, folks, that ends our Chapter 1 discussion. This will be posted to your Google Classroom. I highly recommend that you guys take a look at this, take notes as you're going on, and hopefully this will help you prepare for the quizzes and tests that come up. So as always, if you guys have any questions, email me, or you know where to find me. Thank you guys. Have a great rest of your day.